Today I will adjust valves and replace washers in Volvo 940 Turbo. It is the legendary red block engine B230 FT. On the cold engine, the clearance should be between 0.3 and 0.4 mm. I start with marking spark plug wires. It is important to not mix them. The length of the wires is such that it is difficult to make mistake, but it is better to be safe than sorry. I disconnect the wires and set them aside. I don't touch the wires at the distributor. There is a pipe that goes over the valve cover. I have to take it out. Being careful is important in this case because plastic is brittle after 20-some years. I don't want to break anything. Taking out the clamp and removing the pipe. Just in case, I put plugs where the pipe used to be to prevent from any objects falling into the intake or oil separator. I take off the pulley from the water pump to get access to the timing belt cover. I have to use a rubber strap wrench to loosen those bolts. Water pump pulley out. There is one screw at the back of the timing belt cover. Two bolts on the front side that require 10 mm socket. The bolts are of different length and they have to go back exactly the same way they were pulled out. The third one at the bottom of the cover calls for 12 mm socket. Timing belt cover out. The camshaft sprocket has a mark. Turning the engine clockwise by the crank pulley, I set the mark in line with the mark on the cover. The crankshaft pulley marks align with the 0 mark on the bottom cover. Position of the third sprocket doesn't matter because it drives the oil pump only on the cars with the distributor at the camshaft. Taking out the nuts from the camshaft cover. I don't want to introduce any dirt to the engine, so I clean the cover at the studs. Camshaft cover off. Both cam lobes at the first cylinder pointing upwards. If the harmonic balancer is not defective, then number 1 cylinder is at top dead center. I start with the number 1 valve at the first cylinder. Using a feeler gauge, I probe the gap between the lobe and the lifter. 0.4 mm barely gets in. .45 mm, not a chance. With the first 2 valves checked and results written down, I turn the engine clockwise to set number 3 and 4 valves cam lobes pointing upwards. And so on. Now I loosen the nut on the belt tensioner. With pressure relieved, I block the tensioner with a nail. There is a hole under the spring just for this. Timing belt off, and I take out the camshaft sprocket. As you can see, it can be set on the shaft only in one position. After marking position of the distributor, I take it out of the camshaft. In order to remove the camshaft, I have to take those caps out. I loosen them a little bit at a time, each in turn, to gradually and evenly release the pressure from the valves on the camshaft. When I take out the caps, I put them aside in a way that I can put them back later on in the same spot and same position. Valve cover gasket out. I lift the camshaft off the head. I cover the engine to avoid anything falling into it. After all, it is open heart surgery. I pull out cam follower. Measure the shim thickness and write it down. I take out the valve washer from the valve stem. Here you have old one and new. New one onto the valve stem into the valve keeper. Once again, old, and new. I take the shim out of the cam follower. Clean it up for precise measurement. Here I have an example of measurements taken during the process. Cylinder number 1, 2 valves. Cylinder number 2, and so on. On the first valve, first cylinder, the valve lash measured is 0.4 mm. This is correct. Nothing has to be done here. On the second valve, first cylinder, the valve lash measured is 0.45 mm. It is too much. Measured thickness of the shim is 3.7 mm. So to correct the clearance, I need to replace the shim with 3.75 mm shim. And so on for the remaining valves. Now it is time to put everything back together. I set the engine again at TDC. I lubricate the camshaft and caps with engine oil. It should be fresh oil, but since I changed oil 3 days ago, I use the oil from the engine. The caps come back in the same order and the same position they used to be here. It is important. It is good time to change the front seal, but I did it recently changing timing belt. I put the nuts on and gradually drive them down. On this engine, those nuts should be tightened to 20 newtonometers. I check the torque on each nut 3 times. Quite often, tightening a nut next to the one that was just done to the spec will loosen a little bit this previous one. I check this few times. Setting up the distributor according to the marks I did before taking it out. I have to clean up the cover and the surface for the gasket. Valve cover gasket bends at the corners, so I have to seal those spots. I put temporarily the old gasket since I don't have 2 shims I have to order. I will be back here in few days to change them. But then I will not take the camshaft out. I will slide out using special tool those 2 shims. Sealant that I'm using is RTV silicone. I put the valve cover on and I remember about grounding straps. No solid ground is asking for trouble. The camshaft sprocket aligned with the timing mark. (14mm) socket. I block the sprocket, or rather looking for a good spot to put the tool against. I use for this a special tool to hold the crankshaft stationary. Very useful tool to have around B230 engine. (15 Nm) and 14mm socket do the job on the camshaft sprocket. Marks aligned. Timing belt on. Marks on the harmonic balancer and the zero mark on the cover in line. The nail is out. Tensioner pushing on the belt. 15 Nm on the nut. I have to come back to this one after about 1000 kilometers to retighten it. I put the cover on. There is a rubber plug in it, so I don't have to take off the cover again to retighten the tensioner belt. Water pump pulley on. I take off the plugs and put all pipes back again. It is a good opportunity to replace old vacuum hoses. I measure the same length. I give you this ring as a symbol of my... Oh jeez, this is a different ceremony. I push it on. Metal ring back in place. I connect spark plugs and remove the tags. This is it.